Okay, everybody, we're all here. Let's begin this session. I just want to thank all the distinguished speakers for your support. Welcome you to this session on the accelerating financial inclusion in India. This session is part of the 28th Convergence India 2021 Expo. The organizers are the India Trade Promotion Organization and Exhibitions India Group. I just want to introduce also our distinguished speakers. We have Mr. Sivaram Meganti, Chief Business Officer, Happy, Mr. Ashish Ahuja, Chief Operating Officer, Fino Payments Bank, Mr. Jason Fernandez, President, India Operations, XREX, and Mr. Guy Mota, Head of Operations, Salary Fits. And the moderator for this session will be Mr. Dharminder Jhamp, VP, Public Policy and Government Relations.
At this 28th Convergence India Expo, and we have a panel to discuss on the agenda on financial inclusion, to be very specific, that accelerating the financial inclusion in India. Then I would like to invite Jason Fernandez. Jason, welcome to the panel. May I request for a brief introduction for our audience and about your organization as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Dharmendra. My name is Jason Fernandez. I head India operations for Expo Inc. We're essentially a blockchain trade tech company aimed to facilitate international trade, cross-border businesses, mostly in emerging economies using blockchain. So we've launched a series of products and services, including essentially a full crypto to fiat exchange, cryptocurrency exchange, a SaaS My Exchange, something we call My Exchange, an escrow service called BitCheck, which is enormously popular. And not only in India, but also now in Africa, South America, Vietnam, and other developing countries. So we're essentially a trade tech company backed by sort of well-known VCs, including AppWorks, WI Harper, Black Marble, the founders of Skype, and mostly the Taiwanese government by virtue of their National Development Fund.
Great. Thank you, Jason, for brief introduction. And maybe this is a topic which will be like a kind of a growing topic and a most talked about topic about the crypto aspects in India and how will it structure and how regulations and government guidelines will get framed up. And that is something which the whole country is looking at, and how will it drive the financial inclusion aspects in country. So this is about now I'll move to the next aspect, which is most talked about, I would say, aspects in the country. So to Jason, so my question to you is that with rising use of platform as a service and software services in the financial sector, what do you think the whether the regulatory aspects or right amount of importance have been given on the regulatory aspects or by the regulator or the policy makers to actually accelerate the adoption of PaaS and SaaS, and if you see that any good practices from other countries, would you like to share so that the growth of the fintech sector to drive financial inclusion can be further increased? Over to you, Jess.
Sure. I'll speak to the regulatory challenges that we face in the cryptocurrency industry because that's sort of been my focus. And we've been hearing whispers, of course, it's all over the news that that India is considering perhaps a complete ban on cryptocurrency. And sort of the messages that we're getting are mixed, because on one hand, we have the finance minister saying essentially that to some degree cryptocurrencies will be permitted, and then we've heard, obviously different people in the government say different things. So I think the industry would benefit from government speaking with a unified voice on that. That's probably the first point. The next point that I think is important is it's really important that cryptocurrency as an asset class continue to exist in India. I think that it's up to people whether they feel like they should be able to invest in it. I think government's role should be making it essentially safe for the consumers and ensuring that certain sort of best practices are adhered to. So I would say that I like the way that the Indian government has looked at regulating the OTT market, where sort of you have the first level, which is within the company itself. It's sort of an ombudsman in the company. And then the second level is an industry self-regulatory body. And then only on the third level is an interdepartmental committee that sort of focuses on these things. So I think something like this, when it comes to cryptocurrency regulation, would probably be beneficial, because it's probably not in the country's interest to look at this in a punitive sense, but more to look at it as sort of a way to increase financial inclusion. And I think that's really core. It does. The technology does tend to increase financial inclusion, and I think it's important that the government recognize that, and regulations sort of be in line with that. And there are other countries that have adopted regulations, FATF guidelines, for example, Financial Action Task Force, that could sort of mitigate issues that the government might have with things like money laundering and stuff like that. So I'm a fan of the way the government has regulated some of these industries. I'm really cautiously optimistic that that when regulation comes around to cryptocurrency, it's equally positive and consumer centric, in that it's protecting the consumers from things like scams and really bad actors in the industry that even us as exchanges, we don't obviously want bad actors in the industry. We have very stringent AML policies. We use CipherTrace, and essentially all remotely suspicious transactions on our exchange are blocked. And so to that extent, we believe that there's a lot that a government can sort of, that we can work together with government on.
So just tell me one thing, that you feel that any particular country has adopted a kind of regulatory depending upon our circumstances? Would you like to give any examples?
Sure. I mean, sure. Sure. We've seen Europe take a lot of countries in Europe have taken a very progressive view of cryptocurrencies. The United States, for the most part, has taken a rather progressive view of cryptocurrencies. And most of the United States' efforts has been toward stopping bad actors from essentially releasing securities and having people basically invest in them. That's sort of been the focus of countries like the United States. But Europe has been incredibly progressive. The UK fintech market is exploding, particularly because of policies that the government has implemented there. Malta, well known for having a pro blockchain policy. They were one of the very first countries in Europe to release the VFA, the Virtual Financial Assets Act. And I think that's actually core, because we really should start thinking of so-called cryptocurrencies more as crypto assets as opposed to currencies. And I think that nomenclature will give some clarity to government in terms of what types of regulation are appropriate, as opposed to using the term currencies that implies, that it's on the same par as, let's say, the US dollar or INR. So I think that's something that we can possibly look at. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jason, for doing the I think the good practices that may be adopted. So thanks for this. Jason, just one question from your side, that from your side, what do you think that as in the trade tech aspect, that how it can be more inclusive and sustainable, and how it can actually impact the growth of SMEs, like I would say small and medium enterprises, that how it can further expedite the adoption of like PaaS and SaaS services for them, so that they can actually increase their growth, increase their productivity by adopting all those innovations that organizations like you bring in.
Thanks, Ramendra. Well, basically, yeah, I believe there's enormous potential. for the technology. I mean, blockchain was ranked as one of the most transformational technologies for trade-based, in the trade-based sector in a recent World Economic Forum global survey. And what's interesting is while trade tech creates benefits like efficiency gains and new digital products and services, also positive environmental impacts, it also faces challenges from fragmented regulations, lack of data harmonization, and obviously the widening digital divide. Now, with XREX, we launched our crypto fiat exchange in September of 2020, and we grew just immensely. And within 6 weeks, we were doing $1 million a day. Within 10 weeks, we were doing $2 million a day in volume on our exchange. And we also have a escrow service called BitCheck, which does a lot of cross-border trade. And something like $25 million in BitChecks were written by our users just in January alone. So I think the success and the speed at which that we see the success is sort of evident in that, in showing the potential of blockchain to sort of revolutionize cross-border trade and trade tech. So just to give you an idea of some of the real world use cases that our technology and trade tech in general can sort of help with. We have a company that works with us. It's essentially they do business cross border in Egypt and most of Africa. And the lady in charge essentially is able to function in all these countries. And what they do is they manufacture rickshaws. And they sell it to the governments of these countries in some cases, and also to certain companies within those countries in Africa. But because of the USD shortage, and they have obviously a problem of local currency depreciation in Africa, that's a huge issue. It became really, really hard for her to receive payment. So what she used to do before XREX started working with her was she did something known as a double trade. So for example, she would manufacture the rickshaw and then sell it, and then the people would pay her in another commodity. So for example, the people would pay her in things like coffee beans, truffles, even fish. And this sort of double trade can cause major problems, right? Because now she has a commodity, and then she has to export that. And then she also has to take all the risks during export and find a buyer. So at one point in time, one of her customers paid her in fish. And this is basically for rickshaws. So her customer paid her in fish, and she managed to find a buyer in China, had the fish shipped over there, but the port in China essentially completely blacked out. And so there was no power, and all the fish got spoiled. Now, she was an enterprising lady, and so she was able to sort of turn that rotten fish into pet food. But you can see how this has, major issues when you're trying to do cross-border trade. Now all she does is when she gives the people the rickshaw, the buyer pays her in Bitcoin. Or they contact her local My Exchange in that area, the company that one of our products, and they use local currency to buy maybe Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, and then able to directly pay USD. So that sort of helps at the very most basic level. Inclusion and drive sustainable trade, right? Because these sort of inefficiencies are huge problems, particularly for smaller businesses. So to that extent, I think that trade tech can definitely democratize people's access to cross-border trade and make it more efficient. And that's certainly what we've seen with our experience.
Great, Jason. Great. Thanks for sharing that particular example of Bitcoin, how it and about its use cases and how it can be used, and how trade tech can contribute towards the financial inclusion in this country. Thank you, Jason. Jason, what is from your perspective that what should we do, like in near term or on a long term structurally? What should we do?
So I'd say that the cryptocurrency industry, the crypto asset industry, has somewhat been seen as distinct from the fintech industry, at least in India. It almost seems like on one end they're trying to promote fintech and financial inclusion while at the same time tamping down crypto assets. And I think that's probably not the best strategy. I think that if cryptocurrency or crypto asset companies were seen more as in line with the government's view of increasing financial inclusion, which has been the case pretty much all around the world. India is the second largest country, unbanked country on the planet. Something like 1 in 8 people are unbanked in India. These are the sort of problems that blockchain was actually built to fix. And it's upsetting that in the areas like South Asia, most of South Asia, this sort of technology is highly restricted, and so it doesn't really fulfill the promise that the technology was sort of built to work with. So I think that to answer your question succinctly, I think if the government saw us more as partners in the goal of promoting financial inclusion in the country, because we certainly see ourselves as that being our primary mission. Our CEO Wayne has spoken many times about the reason we focus on countries like India, emerging economies like Africa, is because financial inclusion is one of our missions. And so if government was able to understand that we are aligned on that, I think that would be much better both for us, but also for the government and for people in general.
Sure. Thank you. Strong point. So now we are at the conclusion of the panel, and deeply thanks to the diverse set of panel. I would say that from the payments perspective, we have perspective from the lending side, perspective from the crypto side, and perspective from the solution or the platform which drives inclusion in terms of giving salary, or the platform which drives the inclusion from the salary side for the MSME sector or for the informal sector. So from my side, it's literally insightful for me to understand these all points, and really thankful for all of you for giving your time. And I think we are good to conclude this panel, and great learning for me. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you so
very
much.
Thank you all.
Sure.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes today's sessions, everybody. Please join us tomorrow again, 10 o'clock, and we'll have a new session begin then. Thank you and good evening.